Shortland.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the opportunity to make a contribution on the appropriation bills and the opportunity to speak about the Leader of the Opposition's and Labor's exciting response to the government's disappointing budget and how Labor's plans will benefit the Hunter region. I also welcome the opportunity to provide an update on events in Shortland during the recent sitting break. As I normally do when speaking on the appropriation bills, I draw to the attention of the House that unlike the Liberal and National parties, the Labor Party are not constitutional vandals and support the passage of these bills. It should never be forgotten that it was the Conservative parties of this country that disgustingly and recklessly held the country to ransom in 1975 and denied supply to the democratically elected government who enjoyed a majority in the House of Representatives. The current Liberals and Nationals are heirs to these constitutional vandals, these so-called defenders of tradition and the constitutional monarchy. What shocking hypocrisy, Madam Deputy Speaker. The budget delivered by the Treasurer the budget last year delivered by the Treasurer was cockily declared that the budget was back in black. The budget he handed down a few weeks ago then recorded the biggest budget deficit in Australian history, with gross debt of $1.7 trillion. And despite the record spending, there is a total failure for a comprehensive jobs plan, a plan that millions of Australians left behind need. And the budget was notable not for who was included, but who missed out. Women missed out. Unemployed people over the age of 35 missed out. Anyone in need of aged care missed out. One of the key centrepieces of the budget is the JobMaker hiring credit. The catch with this, as there always is with this tricky mob, is that you have to be under 35 to access it. This is a shocking slap in the face for the 930,000 Australians looking for work who are over the age of 35. Another of the very disturbing figures is that unemployment is due to increase by 160,000 by the end of this year. This is on top of the 2.5 million Australians who are already out of work or are looking for more hours in their current positions. Back on the JobMaker hiring credit, Madam Deputy Speaker, Labor supports the hiring credit being applied to young people. Young people need assistance to get into jobs, but the Prime Minister has been unable to explain why he has excluded 930,000 Australians who are unemployed who are over the age of 35. The single largest cohort on JobSeeker at the moment are women aged over the age of 45. The JobSeeker demographics have really changed in the last 20 years, with those aged over the age of 35 making up the majority. So this JobMaker credit will instantly put those job seekers at a disadvantage in any interview. If you're a 49-year-old person going for a job interview against someone who's 29, you're at a $200 a week disadvantage in terms of subsidies. So I have huge concerns with the way the JobMaker hiring credit is being rolled out. In contrast, Labor's priorities are clear, as espoused by Labor, the Leader of the Opposition in his budget reply speech. Transforming childcare, creating jobs now, building things in Australia, empowering our economic and social recovery with clean energy. One of the key parts of the job focus is Labor's National Rail Manufacturing Plan. This will ensure there are more trains built in Australia by local workers and ensure every dollar of federal funding spent on rail projects boosts local jobs and industry. This is an exciting announcement for the Hunter region, which is a proud manufacturing history. I was very pleased to welcome the Leader of the Opposition with my Labor colleagues to the Hunter the week after the budget to visit workers at Varley, which has been manufacturing in the Hunter Valley for over 100 years. Companies like Varley and their employees, not to mention young women and men who want to learn a trade, would all benefit from this plan. My first electorate office, Madam Deputy Speaker, in Cardiff, boarded the Downer train yards, train manufacturing yards that had manufactured trains and rolling stock for decades. Those yards were decimated when successive state governments made decisions to send that work overseas. They managed to hold on to a little bit of work doing re-weld and corrections of shoddy manufacturing by Korean train manufacturers, but that's not the way it should happen. The state government is a disgrace. The state premier was horribly wrong in saying that Australian workers can't build trains, because Australian workers are building trains right now in Maryborough, in Queensland, and in Ballarat in Victoria, because they are led by progressive Labor governments that back Australian workers. And I'm so proud that a federal Labor government under Anthony Albanese would do the same. And the Leader of the Opposition is a valued friend of the Hunter, and when he was Minister for Infrastructure, he delivered the $1.2 billion Hunter Expressway, which has had a truly amazing impact on improving productivity, slashing by hours the time to travel from the upper to lower Hunter and Newcastle. Another major part of the opposition's budget reply was outlining Labor's commitment to $500 million in funding for social housing repair. This has two tremendous social and economic outcomes. It will improve the quality of life for thousands of Australians who need urgent upgrades, as well as stimulating the economy and getting tradies into work. I was also pleased to welcome Labor's Shadow Minister for Housing and Homelessness to Shortland after the budget, and Jason Clare and I and Jodie Harrison, the State Member for Charlestown, visited Casey Martin at Windale, and she was good enough to show us around her home. What we saw is just not good enough in Australia. Casey's home was in need of urgent repair. There was black mould everywhere, and the New South Wales Department of Housing was refusing to do anything about it. This is a great example of where Labor's $500 million would improve the quality of life of fellow Australians and put people back into work. And I thank Casey for allowing Jason and I to meet with her and assure that Labor will continue to fight for more and for better and greater numbers of social housing. And these two announcements by Labor, compared to the budget, really highlight the stark choice Australians have. And that choice is being reinforced by the cuts being suffered right now by my constituency Shortland because of the egregious decision by this government to cut JobMaker and JobSeeker. Their cuts to JobKeeper affect 17,000 residents of Shortland and have cut $15 million per fortnight out of the Shortland economy. Their cuts to JobSeeker have put another $6 million out of the Shortland economy per fortnight. That is $21 million of income that is going into Shortland businesses that has just disappeared because of this government's short-sighted management of the budget. And so I think that's a really important point to make. I'd now like to, with my remaining time, update the House on the visits and meetings I've had the pleasure of having in Shortland in the last few weeks. I was very pleased to receive a briefing from Dr Andrew McGee from the Centre for Water, Climate and Land at the University of Newcastle, and to be briefed on the model they've developed which predicts tropical cyclones in the Pacific nations up to 4 months in advance. This is much more accurate than the current Bureau of Meteorology approach, and I approached the Minister for the Pacific to see whether they could get assistance. Now, I was discouraged with the initial response from the Minister, and I am disappointed that they have turned down the opportunity to improve the accuracy of forecasting of cyclones, not just for the Pacific, but for Australia as well, and I'm certainly very interested in working out how we can advance this project. I visited Design Anthology at Gateshead and met with Josh and also Matt from TechEvo and heard about the collaboration these two fantastic local manufacturing companies are undertaking. I got to catch up with Jack Irby from St Mary's Catholic College and present him with a copy of The Worldly Philosophers, an excellent tome on economic history by Robert Hillbroner, and I wish Jack all the best for his future studies. I met with retail workers at Lake Macquarie Squares, Coles, Big W and Woolworths to thank them for their magnificent efforts this year dealing with keeping the stores open during the COVID lockdown and ensuring that the people of Lake Macquarie did not miss out on vital supplies. Thanks to Deb from the SDA for introducing me to these workers, and I have to acknowledge Michelle from Woolworths at Lake Macquarie Square, who has helped make over 1,000 masks for local hospitals in her spare time. The tourism industry, Madam Deputy Speaker, has been devastated by COVID-19, and I've met with Brett Dan from Hunter Travel Group, and I want to thank Kyla Ledbetter for organising a meeting with a group of local travel agents to hear firsthand what they are experiencing. They are clear to me that the cut to JobKeeper will hurt them and that there has to be an industry-specific package for tourism, and I was disappointed that that demand was not met in the budget. This is the industry most impacted by the COVID lockdown. This is an industry that employs nearly 50,000 Australians. They desperately need more assistance, and this government is ignoring them. Madam Deputy Speaker, much of Shortland is bordered by the largest saltwater lake in the Southern Hemisphere and the magnificent Pacific Ocean. And I've met so many times with locals through advocacy groups such as Save Our Coast and as individuals to talk about their opposition to oil and gas drilling on our Pacific coast. It was good to get an update from them, and I was so proud that I could announce my opposition to the PEP 11 project in Parliament last week. The PEP 11 project is bad for the environment, it's bad for our coastal way of life, and it's bad for jobs. It will only deliver, at best, a handful of jobs into our local community, but it will risk the thousands of local jobs, the thousands of locals who are employed in tourism, in fishing, both commercial and recreational, and all the other industries that rely on our beautiful beach life. So I was proud to stand with them and say I oppose PEP 11. On Friday of last week, I attended the Hunter Manufacturing Awards, and I'm so proud that Shortland businesses won so many awards. Congratulations to Siren Holdings Group, Zexa Chemicals and Ampcontrol, who were joint winners of the Manufacturing Pivot Award, and which was presented in honour of the late Rod Murphy. And congratulations to Safe Earth, who won the Collaboration Partnership Award with Ampcontrol and Nui Ventures. And these are two great examples of local manufacturers responding to the challenges of COVID. Siren Holdings have moved from making commercial dishwashers to developing disinfectant and surface treatments that kill COVID on kitchen surfaces. This is incredibly important work that I would like to be out there right now selling around the world. Unfortunately, a backlog in the TGA lab means that they are unable to get their claims registered until early next year. I'm working with them to advance that timeline. Their claims have been validated by HMRI, which is a world-class laboratory. So this is really important work that will help defeat COVID and help drive more jobs in the local economy. And congratulations to Safe Earth, who with Ampcontrol and Nui Ventures, at the start of the COVID crisis, managed to start producing ventilators for the New South Wales public health system in a week. These are companies that had no experience in building ventilators, but because of their great skilled engineering and research workforce, were able to turn around quickly from an urgent request from New South Wales Health and start building ventilators that thankfully we haven't needed so far, but are really important as part of the COVID crisis. Madam Deputy Speaker, I also got to meet with Dr Matt Dunn and his team doing important research into DIPG. DIPG is the deadliest childhood cancer. On average, 50 Australian kids have DIPG each year, but is responsible for half of the childhood cancer deaths per annum in this country. It is an awful disease where the median survival time is 10 months. So it's a horrible disease. We urgently need to do more research into it, and I really am. I was privileged to meet Matt and his research team and acknowledge their groundbreaking work into raising the profile of this disease and researching treatment options to this. And I thank Matt for sharing his personal story about how his family was directly impacted by DIPG and the passing of his daughter, which is such a sad and tragic event. And quite frankly, I'm in awe of the strength of Matt and his family, that they turned this tragedy they face this tragedy and they're able to build on this tragedy and respond to this tragedy by dedicating their lives to researching and fighting this deadly disease. And I want to recognise the DIPG Run, which is raising funds for research, and I was pleased to take my children on the run along the Fernley track a month ago. And I just want to say to Matt, his wife Phoebe, you're all associated with the run. You were doing truly inspiring work, and I pay tribute to what you are doing on behalf of the 150,000 residents of Shortland. I also got to meet with Dr Larry Roddick, who is the National Medical Director of Rotary Oceanic Medical Aid for Children. ROMAC brings sick kids from the Pacific to this country to perform surgeries on them to repair illnesses. And I want to thank them for what they do. I want to thank Brad Hazzard, the New South Wales Minister for Health, for coming to the aid to reduce the costs of those procedures in New South Wales hospitals. This was a great outcome, an outcome which went beyond politics. So I want to thank Larry and Rotary and Brad Hazzard for the great work they've done.